Yo, welcome back to channel 1. Hope you guys are all doing well. It's Oscar and we're back again with another video. Today we're going to be talking about something pretty fun, something pretty unique, and something I didn't even know existed until probably a handful of weeks ago. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. So, straight into it. Today we're going to be talking about how Paulson actually used to make 43mm fantasy chips. And the only reason I actually found this out was there was a PCF user named Oscar Gambles, I believe it was. He found a rack of Casino de Isthmus 1Ks, oversized, obviously, kind of 43mm Baccarat inverse hat and cane chips. I have no idea actually where he found them. I'll try to find the thread, and maybe he had some information on there. But it was interesting because it was the first ever time I personally had ever seen 43mm Casino de Isthmus chips in general. My first time ever seeing 43mm fantasy chips back from like the 90s, because I'm sure, or at least I'm not sure specifically, I'll post a picture of this chip on the screen so it's a little easier to see, but this was the chip, the 43mm Casino de Isthmus 1K that he found a rack of, and like I said, I'm not sure if this was something you could order back when they were doing the 98 version of the Casino de Isthmus, because I know in 05 they went ahead and switched the inlay style, and the whole mold, the actual mold of the chip actually said Paulson chips. So with that in mind, this chip was, let's say, made in 98 or up until 2005. If that was the case, if people were allowed to order, Casino de Isthmus chips from 98 to 2005, that would mean that this chip was ordered somewhere in between that, 7-year time frame, which would make sense. If somebody back then was very interested in the Baccarat size chips and they loved 43mm chips, maybe it was a special opportunity to order 43mm chips in, that 1K size. I'm not sure if they did it for other chips, but it's very interesting to see, because obviously it wasn't part of the original fantasy line where they only had the 39mm chips. And yeah, I don't know, it was interesting because, like I said, it was my very first time seeing it. It was a lot of people's very first time on PCF seeing that. So it was very eye-opening and kind of, in a way, kind of surprised a lot of people as to knowing that, Paulson did create 43mm Casino de Isthmus chips. Whether that is that there's more of them out there, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, back in the day, those that actually went to Paulson would probably know. But if you were able to order just one rack, or let's say you wanted a rack of this, or you had to have a minimum order of, let's say, like 300 chips or 500 chips per set, I'm not completely sure. So if there are more 43mm chips out there, let's say for Casino de Isthmus, or let's say what was another? Let's say Paulson or Paulson Classics. I'm sure they didn't do those. I'm trying to think. Let's say like Scandias or Presidents or the Dogs or something like that. I'm not sure if there's 43mm chips of those out there, but it definitely leaves a little bit of room for speculation. If somebody wanted to, they could, go out there, they could research, they could, figure these things out. Maybe, Paul Endy's son was at the last CCH show the other 2 weeks ago, so maybe he would have had some information. Maybe it would have been a good idea to ask him. I'm not completely sure. I'm not sure as to, the business or what the manufacturing process was, how involved he was. I'm sure he's probably very involved, but I'm not 100% sure because I never talked to him. I didn't talk to him personally at the show, but it would have been very interesting to talk to him and, let's say, maybe get a little bit of information from him regarding that. But I happened to ask Mikko, who's my boss at Spinetti's, the other day if he knew that Paulson did 43mm chips. Of course, he said yes, they did. He never told me that, and he goes, well, you never asked the question. I was like, man, I don't know. There's so many questions I have to ask, so maybe I should start asking them more often. But he also pointed out that Winners, I think it was Winners Club or Winners Club, that was kind of like a fantasy line that Paulson did create. From my understanding, they had 39mm, 43mm, 48, and 50mm chips. But there was a handful. I believe the larger chips were actually no mold chips. I believe the no mold chips are actually a lot more heavier than standard, like inverse hat and cane chips. Obviously, they're going to be a little bit heavier, or larger, because they were the 50mm, I believe, and the 48mm, I believe. The other week, like a week or two before the show, we actually have or I got the chance to handle. There was a Paulson no mold color sample set that I got to handle, and the no mold chips on standard 39 mil, those things are extremely heavy compared to the standard THC ones, which I was very surprised. They were no mold 39 mil with inlays, stamped with the color on them, which was very interesting. But those no mold chips, those things are extremely heavy. So kind of leads me to wonder, I don't personally have any Winners Club chips, but those that do have the Winners Club chips, I'd love to know how heavy those the oversized chips are, specifically the no mold ones. If I'm remembering correctly, the no mold, they were the larger denoms and the larger size chips, but I'd love to know how much one of those weighs, because it would be very eye-opening. I'm very into leaded chips. I'm very into, Baccarat size 43 mil chips. More on the higher end, I guess not the higher end, but the oversized chips. That's something that very much interests me, alongside with the TRKs. Of course, you guys know I love TRKs with that small crown, large crown. Those really, really interest me. Those are like my number one favorite thing to collect. Let's make that small crown leaded. Anything leaded, really. THC leaded, inverse hat and cane, anything leaded, really, just piques my interest. So, main thing of this video was the 43 mil, Casino de Isthmus chip, which is right here. Like I said, I'll probably have a picture of it on the screen, so it's a little bit easier for you guys to see. But I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little video talking about 43 mil fantasy chips and how Paulson used to make them. If you did, please drop a like. If you have any comments, put those down below. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.